Marianne Williamson has become the Democratic Party's first Biden challenger. She announced today, Monday, that she will be running against Joe Biden for the Democratic Party nomination in 2024. Actually, she is formally going to kick off her campaign with an event in D.C. on Saturday coming. And she noted in a weekend Facebook post this past weekend that the fact that Trump managed to steal the White House makes it, her words, quote, odd for anyone to think they can know who can win the presidency, end quote. And she also said this, quote, I'm not putting myself through this again just to add to the conversation. I'm running for president to help bring an aberrational chapter of our history to a close and to help bring forth a new beginning, end quote. She also said this, quote, I feel my 40 years being up close and personal with the trauma of so many thousands of individuals gives me a unique perspective on what is needed to help repair America, end quote. She also added this, quote, we need a politics that treats not just symptoms, but cause, that does not base itself on the crass imperatives of endless corporate profits, but on the eternal imperatives of our principles and values, end quote. Now, do you know anything about Marianne Williamson? You should check it out. At one time, she was the spiritual advisor to Oprah Winfrey and had great interest in psychic situations, attitudes. One of her proposals when she did this before, the Democratic presidential nomination back in 2020. And one of the proposals that I thought was phenomenal, nobody picked up on it, of course, was a plan to create a U.S. Department of Peace. A U.S. Department of Peace. You know, before we renamed the War Department, the Defense Department, it was called the War Department. So Marianne Williamson is suggesting U.S. Department of Peace. And she also has advocated back in 2020 that the federal government pay massive financial reparations to black Americans as atonement for centuries of slavery and discrimination. And then she ended her campaign in 2020, a few weeks before Iowa caucus, and later endorsed Bernie Sanders. She's the author of more than a dozen books. She ran for Congress as an independent in California in 2014. And in 2016, she made a name for herself. That's when she was a vocal supporter of Bernie Sanders' challenge to Hillary Clinton. She has said, I'm looking at some of her quotes. She's also said this, if we don't preserve the blessings of democracy today, we should expect the threat of authoritarianism later. Now, what do I think about Marianne Williamson? Well, she was born in Houston, Texas, youngest of 3 children. Her dad was a World War II veteran and immigration lawyer. Her mom was a homemaker and community volunteer. She was raised in an upper middle class family that practiced, conservative Judaism. Her family attended a congregation there, a synagogue, Beth Yeshurun. She learned about world religions and social justice at home, as so many young kids who are brought up in a Jewish household do. And she first became interested, according to what I've read, in speaking from the pulpit on social matters when she saw her rabbi speak against the Vietnam War. Her family also traveled a lot internationally during the summers, apparently, when she was a kid. And she said that it was through that travel that she, quote, had an experience at a young age that people are the same everywhere, end quote. There's some more interesting things about her. I'm glad she's in the race. I may even vote for her if she makes it into the primaries that will be coming. I think the first one is later this year. I know she's written some airy-fairy stuff, her experiences, her not necessarily psychic experiences, but her experiences, her investigation of the soul. And that has to come from a Jewish perspective because of her upbringing, just like Elon Musk was raised in a hate-filled, demonic, apartheid, horrifying situation for his first 18 years. One assumes, and I feel I'm correct in this because I've read a couple of her books and also have read some biographical information about her, that she was raised in a home that took the opposite tack from somebody like Donald Trump, who got no emotional or spiritual upbringing at all, or Elon Musk, who was taught to hate. I have the feeling, the impression, that Marianne Williamson was taught just the opposite. She was taught inclusion, respect, love, caring. Is the American public ready for that kind of a candidate? I'm not laughing in a sarcastic way. I'm kind of giggling in a cynical way. I don't think we're ready for her. But I will pay close attention, and I hope you will too, to her campaign. I think she's a very important person with very important things to say. Important in that she has learned, she has studied, she has experienced, she has advocated. All of the above. For justice. That's my opinion. And if she has made detours into a more spiritual aspect than most Americans can handle, that was her own personal trip. Sometimes I wish Joe Biden had, or still would, do a couple of doses of psilocybin. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.